I'm thinking about the type of individual that you may have said yes to. You weren't saying yes to everybody.
No.
I mean, going out.
Absolutely not.
So there had to be some criteria in your head about, wow.
No.
That makes me feel really good about myself.
No, it was just more of like I almost like went with a gut feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I wouldn't have wanted to go out with somebody that was like, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I just kind of went with a gut feeling and who seemed interesting or fun because I was just kind of in that mode.
Fun mode.
Fun mode, yeah.
You rolling?
We are rolling.
Rolling. So, Mrs. Sargent, today is your day in the hot seat.
I have nothing to hide, Mr. Sargent. Go for it.
We were laughing on the way over here, talking about, I don't know, I called it shopping list, but like you titled Finding Someone New.
Yeah. Well, we want to hear about your little grocery
Nope,
list.
you can't turn this
you
one
made
on
up.
me. No.
Well, you're the one with the good story, not
grocery
me.
list. That's horrible in so many ways. But it's funny, though, because we'll talk a little bit about dating apps. It does feel like you're shopping for people.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. Yeah, so tell me. So here you are. You wrapped up your emotional.
You're so excited. Look at the smile on your face. Like you're going to dig up some new dirt.
This is going out to the world. So you wrapped up your personal work in like a record time, which was amazing.
Well, I think it's still a work in progress, but you know.
I couldn't even find my car keys after 7 months of coming out of divorce, let alone 7 years. But so you wrapped up your personal work, or you're still working on it, and then you probably had to think, okay, well, now what am I going to do with my time, right? Put all those little things in your life that you wanted to have in there that you were maybe not paying attention to, you know, exercise and reading and spending time with friends and going out and doing fun things. But you're a relational creature, so that. What point did that come up? At what point it was like, oh, you know what? Oh, let's see what's out there.
I don't know, but yours, I thought we were going to touch yours first.
No, of course not. No.
I didn't think we were getting to the dating apps. I went straight to the dating apps because that's what my friends at work said. That's how you meet people. Because it wasn't like I was going to go hang out at a bar with a bunch of 21-year-olds, you know, on Saturday night.
I'm pretty sure last time we talked, you wanted to dig into my rebounds. So. Turnabout is fair play.
I know, but I kind of, like, did you sit down and, like, think about what do I want going forward?
No, it took me.
Because I just winged it.
It took me 7 years to get my shit together.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. So, like, you strategically thought, this is what I want. I'm going to put this down.
Well, I did, but it took a while. So that was a considerable amount of time between the time that I felt like I even wanted to have contact with another person in more than a platonic relationship, and the time I met you. So, and there was a lot of mistakes in between.
A lot.
Yeah, I talked about last time about how I was repeating a lot of the same mistakes, and I don't know, whether I didn't sit down and think about it, or trying to numb the pain, with companionship.
Well, I definitely didn't sit down and think about it rationally. I just went for it, met people. I think subconsciously I met people totally opposite from my ex, which was probably a good thing, instead of falling into those same patterns, same type of people.
Can you maybe define went for it? I'm not sure what you meant by
I don't know what you're trying to get at here. I just
we're just having fun.
I teased, and I teased with you, and you were like, what kind of people did you date? And I jokingly said, I was an equal opportunist, I try not to prejudge anybody by, maybe they weren't necessarily my type just visually, on the apps, that's pretty much what you go off of. But if they said something kind of clever and like their little bio or seemed interesting, I would give them a chance. Because you never know.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So you dated the same type of people over and over and over?
Yeah, I think that I didn't think about it. I was just spontaneous, and you meet people, and there was really no planning and thought, and that almost sounds a little bit regimented. You think, well, you plan your grocery list, and you plan your work schedule, but you don't really plan your significant others. But you do. I know I'm getting it. I know where you're going.
Okay.
I know where you're going. So, but I guess the preface to that, because it took me a long time, was, I was repeating a lot of the same mistakes. For me, and so what we're talking about today a little bit is what are the attributes, when you get to a place where you feel like you want to start meeting people, what's the thought process, or what's the
I had no thoughts process.
Yeah, what's the thinking you put into it, or maybe should put into it, and kind of to increase your chances of having either success of meeting the right person, or maybe that's just not your goal. Maybe but you still want to meet good people. You want to meet pleasant people.
Right.
You don't want to you don't want to spend your time with psychos. I mean, forget the whole safety thing. But
yeah, I know one of my things I said was, I'm not gonna date anybody that's like in the midst of their divorce, which I ended up seeing someone for a short time, which the divorce was not final, and so I didn't really like that. And then I didn't want to start all over with kids again. My kids were grown. I'd already had that chapter in my life, so I didn't want to date anybody with kids I knew. So I stuck with that for the most part.
Right. There were definitely things, coming out of the marriage, and I was like, talking about it, hearing myself talk about it sounds a little shallow.
Yeah.
And it may seem that way, but it's really not. I mean, in hindsight, because you're talking about like one of the most important aspects of your life is a relationship, or investing in somebody else. There should be a lot of time and thinking, and not just the whole deep character traits that are really good, but sometimes the surface things matter, but you can get labeled as, you're being so shallow, and I don't necessarily agree with that. So, and in a little bit I'll maybe kind of talk about how I got there, but did you put any like thought into, or was it just I'm thinking about the type of individual that you may have said yes to. You weren't saying yes to everybody.
No.
Going
absolutely
out.
Not.
So there had to be some criteria in your head about, wow.
No.
That makes me feel really good about myself.
No, it was just more of like I almost like went with a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't have wanted to go out with somebody that was like, I don't know. Honestly, I just kind of went with a gut feeling and who seemed interesting or fun, because I was just kind of in that mode.
Fun mode?
Fun mode, yeah.
Actually, I think you hit on a really good point. That gets overlooked in life. And I don't mean to get too philosophical here, but intuition.
Yeah.
And so we touched on a little bit last time about intuition, about our marriages, and knowing where they were, and that kind of internal battle, or that struggle between listening to what your intuition's saying and then doing what is quote unquote the right thing to do, right? What other people expect. And so that intuition piece is so important in every area of your life. And you and I have talked a lot about this, about, listening to your intuition, learning to understand what your intuition sounds like. It took me a long time. And then I realized, that's my intuition. Like, because I would continue to deny, not follow it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you get in your head too much about, I want this, this, and this, you might exclude people that are potentially a really good match. I mean, I wasn't saying this going in, but I think it's good to be kind of open. And, I mean, you were the oldest guy I ever dated.
Yeah, it's a tough
So it's a
crowd.
good thing that I didn't say, I will only go to this. You know what I mean?
You just wanted my AA,
I just wanted
you
to
just
throw
want my
you under the bus a little
AARP
bit.
benefits.
I mean, maybe.
So I got a question. So why do you think people don't listen to their intuition? I mean, any thoughts on that?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, for me, I was like, I always knew and believed we have intuition, intuitive thoughts, and I certainly saw that strong suit in other areas of my life. Certainly in business relationships, in friend relationships. You know, it was easy for me to single out. Oh yeah, that's someone that I'm going to keep at arm's length, or that's a business deal that doesn't feel right. But for some reason, when it came to a emotional or intimate relationship, it was all combobulated. I have no idea why, but I really struggle with that.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I definitely think there's times that I haven't listened to my intuition. I'm not always so carefree and just go with the flow. I think it's just our logical side. We think things are supposed to be a certain way, and sometimes we brush aside those gut feelings that kind of are pointing you in a better direction. I mean, there were definitely signs and things I missed along the way in my old relationship or that I ignored when I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it just kind of hit me like, if you get used to or conditioned to ignoring your intuition when it's screaming at you, right? And I think maybe that little small voice gets quieter and quieter. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe it just like get so used to like not listening to it or overriding it. Because I am a logical thinker. I overthink. I know that I think too much.
Well, and you're the list person. That's why I was laughing about the list earlier.
You want me to talk about my list, don't you?
Yes, because I'm the kind of personality never would have thought to do something like that, to like make a list of, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
It kind of puts it in the forefront of your subconscious of what you're looking for.
I'm going to get judged on this one, you know that.
Well, we don't have to talk about it.
No, that's fine. It's fine because it's kind of the interesting how it played out. But yeah, leading up to that, for me, it was made a lot of mistakes. Kept. What I was going to say earlier was like I remember years, growing up and when I was a teenager and then, late teenager and before I got married. I had this certain type of individual that I was always really attracted to, and it had nothing to do with physical characteristics.
Nothing to do.
No, well, I mean, you
Let's be real here.
You wanted to be attracted to him, but really, what was like really attracted to me was somebody who was, I don't want to say gregarious, but very extroverted, very funny. So laughter and sense of humor, and a really kind personality, like a kind smile, kind eyes. That was my nemesis. I mean, I would just like melt like butter when somebody was like that. And I can look back in my life and see the folks, the people that I had dated prior to that, like they were always a lot of them. That's the ones that really probably had the biggest impact on me. Ironically, I didn't marry that.
Oh, so I'm not kind.
I'm
not fun. This is going great.
I wasn't talking about this marriage.
I thought you were talking about this marriage.
Talking about my first marriage.
Dang.
So yeah, we're
That's a
headed to
little
divorce
harsh.
counseling after this. No, my first marriage, and there were a lot of reasons looking back now why, I got married so young. It was about the condition of the state I was in mentally, emotionally, and then there was so much upheaval and dysfunction, I think, in my life with my family and this and that she was a sense of familiarity and stability.
So did you find yourself meeting or going out with, getting in the long-term relationships that you were in after your divorce, the exact same relationship or the same
So I really
issues?
had two long terms after my marriage. One was, I shared a little bit last time about, there was a years long friendship. We grew up together, so that was a little bit different. Just that one just kind of happened, and I was thankful for it. Like I said before, it helped me go through it. But it was also a long distance relationship. So I'll just touch on this briefly. I'm not built for long distance relationships, and when I say long distance, it was multi-states away. Some people are, and I think this individual was, and that's great. That's just the way they're wired. But me, I'm a connector. I mean, I have to, and I don't just mean physical connections. Like I got to connect. I have to have that in-person interaction. Phil, it's just how I'm wired. Don't do well. I mean, for an extended period, having going away. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about a true long distance relationship. So that one was kind of, the writing was on the wall. I just had to go through that and get to that realization that, yeah, this isn't going to work for me.
So in all these, you met all these people the old-fashioned way, like not through the dating apps, just through colleagues and friends and stuff.
So the first long distance
Well,
relationship, I
obviously
had a
that
prior friendship, but the second one, yeah, it wasn't through a dating app. It was just through a work relationship, and that one, yes, was very much a lot of the same attributes that were my first marriage. And now I'm talking 3.5 years after my marriage. So why was I making the same mistakes? What was the draw?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really not, that's more for unpacking the counseling room, maybe not in the podcast, but
Yeah.
because there's just so much there. But yeah, that one, and we were just talking about it with our studio engineer here before we started, was that when I met that person, it was just all of a sudden met this person at a dinner, group dinner, family dinner, and within the first like 30 minutes we're having dinner, the back of my mind, intuition said, "Don't do it." I was like, "Don't do it," and I was like,
You don't like to be told what to do.
I don't. But it was like, it'll be fine. It's just dinner. Well,
3 years later.
3 years later of just, oof. Yeah, I was kicking my own ass the whole time.
It's so interesting that, I mean, when you were in it though, was it woof or just hindsight was the...
Initially it wasn't, but
Right.
quickly, when the differences, and not just personality differences, but so many differences, it felt like, not this is the right analogy, but like a shirt that was 5 times too small. It was just constricting, tight. We were two different people with different views on life in every area. Kids, politics, religion, family, location.
That's a lot.
Everything, right? And so, again, the whole reason we're talking about like understanding what it is that you want in a person, or you'd like to, those attributes you like in a person are so important.
Yeah.
Because when you don't take time to think about it, you end up like me, and you're in it, and it's like, wow, once the kind of shiny newness wears off.
Yeah.
And then being a person who I have no problem being very upfront, but when you get in an emotional relationship, then all of a sudden now this guilt plays in, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and so I just rock on, and I kind of let it, just like we talk about we did in our marriages.
Yeah, I never got in a serious relationship right after, and I'm glad listening to your stories. No offense, but I'm kind of glad I didn't have to experience that. I don't know what I was saying. We'll have to cut that
Trauma.
out.
Trauma's a good word. Yeah. So yeah, for me, that was kind of my deal, and I know you're like very much condensed, but
Yeah, I guess, not until I met you did I really get serious. I mean, the other times through my dating, it was just strictly dating. There wasn't a deeper relationship going on or commitment. So it was a totally different experience.
Was there a time with an individual you're like, oh yeah, I could see this working out, or
I wasn't feeling it. I mean, I was having fun. They were nice people, but I wasn't feeling it. But in my mind, what I told myself was, oh, well, maybe this is how it is. You have to like date for a while before you start feeling that connection. I mean, I didn't know. I had never dated since I was, a sophomore, or I met him, I guess, at the beginning of my junior year. That's when I met my ex.
High school.
High school.
Yeah.
So this was a totally different experience. So I thought, oh, this is just how it is. It takes a while to build something with somebody.
Though, like I said, you're extremely intuitive. So was that just absent? Like it was not, your intuition wasn't talking to you because there was no need to, because you knew that you were just going,
well, I mean, it
through the motions?
It just wasn't nothing that serious. You're talking about like with my relationships? Like,
yeah.
They're just, I liked them and we were having fun and it was exciting, but there wasn't this deep connection with any of them before I met you, which is interesting.
But you were looking for that.
I did want that, yes. But like I said, I just thought, oh, well, you have to date for a while. It's something that has to build. I didn't think there could be like an instant connection with someone that you really felt like, oh, this is the one.
So how do you, I don't want to use the word contrast, but, understanding the importance of doing your self-work, putting time into getting comfortable with yourself, loving yourself, being alone with yourself, to dating without commitment, to wanting another or a long-term relationship, all in such a short period of time.
Well, I think I'm just wired to want to be in like a long-term monogamous committed relationship. And it was the people I was meeting, a lot of them were like coming out of long relationships. So they didn't want to commit to anything, in which I wasn't honestly really feeling it either. It was more about just having companionship, someone to go out and have dinner with or go see a movie and this and that. And then that just felt like what those relationships were supposed to be. It wasn't like, oh, I was yearning for so much more and they didn't. It was just kind of almost like we were on the same page. It was just more of companionship to hang out and have fun. And
that makes sense.
Until I met you. It was a whole different feeling that I couldn't explain. I couldn't put my finger on it. But I mean, I did verbalize it out loud to my mom and her friends. I was like, something feels different about this one. And it was actually before I even met you in person. We had just been talking over the phone, and it felt different.
Thank you.
It still blows my mind. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here. So you'd ask me about dating, like I would, in those long-term relationships were kind of on again, off again. So there were definitely periods in between, periods throughout that entire stretch. By the time I got divorced and started dating, and the time I met you, there were definitely periods where there was I was single, I guess, and we're meeting people. And I am like I said, I'm a connector, and I like to meet, and might meet somebody and get along really well, and then I don't know, it seemed like I would get sucked into something more than what I wanted or what I needed. So just not making good choices because I wasn't really solid on where I was trying to get to. I knew deep down I wanted like what you and I have. My whole life I always wanted, never had it. So it's not like I had it and lost it and knew what I was looking for.
Right.
I knew what I wanted. I was just trying to figure it out, and everybody's different. But so fast forward through all those years and all those mistakes, and I remember I was living in a different state and thinking about doing something different. And I remember talking about intuition. was laying there at night sleeping, and I heard this like booming voice in my head, but it wasn't obviously external. And it was almost like, get out. But it wasn't like Amityville Horror. It was like, it's time.
Like, oh, shit.
Right. Right. It was just like.
Sounds scary.
It was my intuition saying, you got to get out of this relationship. It's time. You got to do. And it was so like real. I was like, all right. I just made it. I was like having this conversation with myself. It's like, fine. But all right, what's going to, now where am I going? What am I going to do? And then it's almost like when I made that intention, and all of a sudden things just started happening.
When you acknowledged that inner voice?
Yeah. Yeah. All of a sudden, like circumstances in my life began to change. An opportunity to take a career path shifted, which took me many states away, which was a good thing to leave. So it kind of laid out the carpet. So that was a really interesting thing. Is like, when you're struggling, I find now, like when I'm struggling with a decision, one is to get quiet and listen to the intuition. And when you know that that's the right thing and you make this like internal intention that that's the choice you're going to make, it's crazy how the universe things just line up. Can't explain it, but it's happened enough times where I was like, oh, this is real.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what was carrying me, but it was like something just carrying me on a wave, and I wrote it and brought me straight to you.
So this is where the list came from. So it's like before that, a little bit before that happened, again, I shared that I journal a lot. And so one day I was writing, and I was like, obviously this relationship isn't working out for me. Some of the other ones weren't working out. I got to do something different. So I said, well, and I might have heard this or read this somewhere. This idea was like, just sit down and write a list, just like a grocery list.
Yeah, that
sounds so horrible, but I don't care. Of all of the attributes that you would like to find in that person. And I was seeing another counselor for a little bit of time during this time, and she gave me this little exercise. We're sitting together, and she's all right, close your eyes. And now you imagine you're in this room, this big party room with all kinds of people that you don't know. So you close your eyes, you imagine it. She goes, now scan the room. Scan the room. Now, did you see some like attractive other people that you'd be interested in? And yeah. Now what? And so we talked through this. And she's like, do you find that those are the same type people and attributes that you were always been attracted to? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, do something different. Like look for forcibly or intentionally change that viewpoint. Look for somebody in the room that you might not first catch your eye. It wasn't that it was about the person. It was about shifting perspective.
It's funny you say that, because that's like what I did. I guess it's a good thing I couldn't afford a counselor, so maybe some higher power guided me. But like when I was on the dating apps, like someone that normally wouldn't have maybe caught my eye, if something in their bio, they said something kind of cheeky or funny, that I would give them a chance, look for something different.
You were just really in tune. I mean, and I see that. You display that in your life right now all the time. So like, I get it. It makes sense to me. So,
I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect and I have a lot to work on, but.
You do.
Hey now. But I don't know, just hearing you say that and her say that, doing that exercise with you, it's just interesting that when you were asking me about what I was looking for, it was kind of different from my past.
Yeah, I mean, one of my most favorite life sayings or mantras, and I've said it before, is distance is the value of perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The farther away you can step for something, the better perspective you're going to get. And so that's where I was at in my life at that point. I was taking a step back and saying, all right, I'm tired of making the same mistakes, getting the same results. I'm tired of kicking my own ass, so something's got to change. So I sat down and I started making this list. And again, I read it. Somebody wrote this. Said, don't condition it. Like write the deep, meaningful things and write the shallow. Write the things that people would think were shallow. Mm-hmm. And it's a crazy exercise, but I recommend anybody who's in this place, position where they're trying to think of what they want.
Now you were off a little. Like,
Hold on, I'll get there. Characteristics. And so I started writing. It was almost like a brain dump, whatever came to my mind, but it had to feel right. And it was everything from, a warm, tender, empathetic, loving, giving, selfless, the real things that we would label or characterize as quality, to how tall she had to be, or what her political affiliation was, or her religion, or kids or no kids, or pets or no pets, or color hair, even down to what I want her smile to look like, what I want her teeth to look like. And again, these are things that nobody.
This doesn't surprise me a bit, knowing you now, that you got so specific.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying what everybody thinks anyway, and this is what we do. And so I don't know exactly how many lines I had, but literally it was like 32 different characteristic attributes, from personality to character to lifestyle to physical attributes. And it felt right. I didn't know anybody like this. It was almost like that old movie, Weird Science, where these two kids kind of create their perfect woman. But it was like, I'm just going to do a shopping list, and I'm going to put it out there. And did that exercise. And I occasionally looked at it from time to time. This was probably about a year before I met you. I'm going to guess. And so fast forward, we'll get into later how we met and all that. And I met you. And I went back shortly, like right after we met, and went back through that list. And every single attribute, except 2, you had. And that blew my mind. The 2 attributes that you didn't have were, I had a height, and you were 3 inches taller than that height. That was my max height. You were 3 inches taller than height, and the other one was long hair, different color, and yours was short blonde. But other than that, I'm like, I was an upgrade. So it was like, I laughed because it was like, it totally blew my mind.
Well, I'm glad you didn't axe me because I'm tall with short blonde hair. It would have been pretty shallow.
Right. But you know what? I got everything I wanted, because I made the intention, I did the work, and I kind of put it out there and then just let go. And, I've talked to other people about this, and they're like, yeah, well, it would happen anyway, or that's crazy. I don't really care what anybody else says, because I know that that's my experience. It worked for me. So, yeah. So I think maybe to kind of wrap it up, what are some of the points or thoughts you think about when you would share with finding that somebody like?
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking how I still ended up kind of getting you in the hot seat today, and I stayed out of it. Again. Your stories are so much more interesting than mine, though.
Your time's coming.
Oh, okay. No, I think follow your intuition. Be open, like you said. Step out of the box that you normally date within, and you just might find yourself a better match.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say listen to your own voice. Forget what everyone else says if it conflicts with what you want. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, or don't stop yourself from, maybe a better way to say it is, don't settle.
Right.
Don't settle. We talk about this all the time. Mm-hmm. Don't settle because you don't have to. And a lot of times we settle because we
out
don't.
Of fear. You're
right.
Gonna, yeah.
We don't think we deserve better, or fear, or whatever. We never really get quiet and say, what is it I really want? Even if it seems like complete fantasy. I'm living proof.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah. So, great talk. I love you.
I love you too.